We're going to begin this evening's meeting of the Unparished Area Committee. This is our second meeting. Welcome, everyone. I have an apologies from Councillor Colin Minto, and I believe Councillor Clive Trott as well. So we will then look to the minutes of the last meeting. Did anyone have anything worth noting or correcting of those minutes, or we agreed that those are okay? All agreed? Agreed? Okay, we shall move forward. On to announcements. I have one announcement, and forgive me, my voice isn't the best today. The Council has received a community governance application from the Horsham Blueprint Business Neighbourhood Forum requesting a governance review of the unparished area of Horsham Town. This application will be considered at the meeting of the Governance Committee on 18 December. The papers for this committee, with more detail about the review, will be available online from tomorrow. Thank you very much. So move on to declarations of members' interests. Councillor Fletcher.
Member of Den Neighbourhood Council.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. So then moving on to item 5 on the agenda, the unparished area budget, and to receive a report from the Director of Resources, and I will hand over to Dom.
Thank you. So following our meeting last month, we've put together an indicative budget that's in front of you. But of course, it's not set in stone or anything. So, I believe we've had some comments, Chairman, that have come through on that budget, and here's a forum to discuss those and see what we want to put in or what we want to take out of there.
Thank you very much. Yes, some comments were submitted in by email. I wonder if anyone who's been emailing around would like to voice those comments now in the committee. Councillor Boffey?
I'll start with one. We'll see whether anyone wants to speak about other ones, but I'm conscious that the blueprint grant was not included for the next year, and I'm conscious that the organisation that's looking after the neighbourhood plan will need support going forward, and it doesn't really have any other funding sources. From getting in touch with the chairman, well, responding to the chairman of the Neighbourhood Forum who contacted me about this, I asked for a indicative estimate of what they think they might need as annual running costs, and there was a few items on there, but it came to, I believe, £1,020. So I don't know whether we wanted to discuss that item or as an initial proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Buffy. I believe that if we've had the papers in front of us and the correspondence, we'll have the Appendix A, which does detail all the current proposals. Now, I'm going to turn to the Director of Resources just to clarify one thing. So that Appendix A currently has the Tambridge Walk lighting amount that was incorrect. Is that correct?
That is, it is an incorrect amount in there. It's not £37,000. It should be 12,500.
Okay. So that leaves an unallocated, shall we say, if we keep the total at the same amount of £25,000 at the moment. Now, I believe some of the comments have been for additional allocations, and some comment on the allocations that were proposed to remove, thinking that we might need to move things around. However, with that that unallocated amount at the moment, I believe we can probably make accommodations for the requests that we've had via correspondence. Councillor Fletcher.
I realise I probably ought to also declare that I'm a member of Blueprint on their committee as well. And harking back to the comments on Blueprint, Blueprint did ask for £2,000 for this coming year, though not necessarily as an ongoing cost.
No, that's not quite right.
No.
Can I turn to Diane, please?
Yes, sorry, it is 1,000, but I think they were asking for to keep continuity.
If I think the confusion was, if I'm correct, is that the last allocation was £2,000, but that's because it was sort of retrospective, is that right, for 2 years worth of funding? Is that correct? I think, did I read that right? Yeah, so now, the calculations we received, Councillor Boffrey, were 1,020.
That's correct, but obviously they're estimated amounts, so
Well, I mean, community wardens is down to the pound, so I mean, I don't see why we couldn't go to the pound if necessary, even though it just makes it a bit harder for everyone to do the mental maths.
quite.
All right. I don't think we need to take it a vote yet. Sorry, Judy.
Sorry, can I refer back to? Yeah, can you hear me? Yes. Refer back to the Tambridge lighting figure. Originally, we were told that was going to be spread over 2 years, or that it would be that the same amount would be in the following year. Are you now saying that it's a total of 12,500, or is it 12,500 times 2?
I will turn to the Director of Resources.
12,500 full stop in just 1 year.
Okay, so if we round up for a second, so that leaves 24,000 unallocated. I believe there have been some other requests that weren't currently haven't been discussed in this forum yet. I'm just looking over. I've got with me the email, Trudy, that you sent the committee, and I believe that one of the main additionals, if there was. Now, you've got some questions about some of them, but obviously nothing necessarily has to be removed at the moment because of this unallocated amount at the moment. Not to say that we don't necessarily do that. But I believe one of the main things you were asking for in point 6 of your email was regarding potentially more funding for the mobile hub snack wagon. Is that something that you two would both like to support, all three?
Sorry, the letter was actually from the 3 neighbourhood councils.
Do any councillors want to add on to that request? Any information, Councillor Buffy?
Well, I think it is an important service that we have running in the area, and I know that there's it's reaching the end of its useful life, so it does actually need replacement. I think that Samantha might have some more information about the snack wagon, but it sounds to me like it looks like there's a rough estimate of cost of replacement of somewhere in the region of £120,000, and there is some allocated capital funding for that at the moment, but not enough to cover the full amount. So I don't know, Sam, would you be able to?
So there is a replacement budget for 130,000 in the capital programme next year, and obviously that is just purchasing the vehicle, not running costs, etc. on that. It does. It's a mobile community hub, so and it does sort of tour the whole of the district. So it's not just for neighbourhood councils, but primarily for youth in the neighbourhood council areas as well.
Councillor Buffy, do you want to come back?
So just to clarify, it's already fully covered in the capital programme then, because I understood that I may have got different figures. They had something around 100,000 available for it at the moment, but you might have more up-to-date figures than me.
Well, it might be in the capital programme, and it's whether it's funded in the capital programme. So it's expenditure in the capital programme, and either the council or the special charge would fund that.
So let's just ask the blunt question. Were we to just allocate the surplus at the moment, and it's not surplus, but the unallocated amount, 23,000.9k or 23.9k, if we allocated that to the mobile hub, would it get used for that purpose? It would help secure that service continues. Okay. So if we, for the moment, keep the running total that we have, does anyone want to comment? We're not going to vote on these individual line items, but does anyone want to speak for or against that we just attribute the remaining funds to that service? Does that seem to satisfy everyone? It's a bit difficult. Martin Buffy?
Well, in principle, I support it, but obviously there are other questions that have been raised by the neighbourhood councils that we need to address as well. But in principle, yes, I would support doing that.
Judy and Diane and Mark, do you want to go line item through the other items in the email, or do you think, is that what you'd like to do? Okay, so let's do that then. So your first point is sort of generally about the increase. Did you want to comment on that? Because obviously that determines whether or not there's this additional funding for the service or not.
I'm not sure if we have much option for what you've decided for this year, but I think we just want to be reassured that it's not going to keep going up by exceptionally high figures year on year.
Councillor Franklin, yeah.
How much did it go up by this year?
9.9%.
In money, in cash terms.
About 40,000, I think.
And how much does that represent? And just to clarify, per household, what was that?
So I've got the figures in front of me here actually. So the Band D equivalent of 23-24 was £27.53. So while we're looking at percentages and aggregate amounts, the actual increase to a Band D equivalent household was to 37.21. So it was just shy of £10 increase, and that's an annual £10, if I'm correct. Is that right? So this year, what was being proposed at the moment is going up from 37.21 to £40.59. So that is an increase of £3. I have to do this in my head. 38p per Band D equivalent household. So again, while the increase is proposed at 9%, it's £3.38 over the year, and we're actually adding, I believe, four budget lines, or a couple budget lines to the list of special charge expenditure than we had done last year.
Thank you.
Councillor Mercer.
Is it possible to distinguish that? Sorry, is it possible to directly compare the lines we had last year and then those continuing, and then the additional services that will be provided through the new lines, and show what is the increase for the lines that are continuing and the lines that are new? Because those, it's about making it quite clear to people that these are new things.
Well, as this session is streamed, I mean, I'm happy to go through Appendix A now, line by line. I might not be able to do the calculations in my head, but we can at least hear the figures that are written in Appendix A. Do you want to do that? Very happy to.
Well, no, I mean, it's not available, but if it's the sort of thing that people will want to be able to compare, so I just wondered if we can produce those figures following the meeting.
So just so I'm clear, what you're asking for is if you were to suggest that, so looking at the totals, just to be clear, it was 456,000 last year. We're proposing 499,000 this year, so it's roughly 43,000 additional. So what you're asking is what are residents getting for that 43,000?
What I'm asking is for an apples for apples comparison and then show the pairs.
Okay. Councillor Buffy, could you help?
You can't easily do that because the tax base changes. So you're not dividing it by the same number of households from one to another. So whilst it would be easy if you were just dividing those increases by the same number of households, that's not what happens.
Could you not do it per household? And the number of households is irrelevant. It's actually what it's the proportion of spend that's being attached to each household. Anyway, I don't want to complicate things. But it's just about people being able to look at what happened, look at what's being proposed, look at why it is more than it was before.
Okay, I'm going to note your point for now. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fletcher.
Appendix A does actually give you last year and this year in quite a compact format, so that you can see which line items have gone down and which line items have gone up since the previous year. So I think quite a lot of what Councillor Mercer's asking for is actually there in Appendix A for anyone who would like to look at it, and it's available on the website.
Can I just add to that? Once we've made the changes, if we make any to that appendix in this meeting now, I can redo that and then recirculate around the committee afterwards. So it's crystal clear.
I appreciate the recirculation, but we are technically approving it today as well, aren't we? So it'd be recirculated just for what we've approved tonight.
You could be making a recommendation.
Recommendation. But this committee's not going to make another recommendation than this one.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so. I don't think so, no.
Yeah, because it does need to go on. Okay, just back to point 1 of Judy's email, just to be clear. I think it's noted the continual increase being a maybe larger than inflation increase. My only comment on that, or 2 comments on that, would be 1, comparatively again, looking at this effective sort of can be associated, though it's very different, to precepts on parishes. And I'm looking at the precepts as listed from last year in the budget as approved, and a quick scan of the 20 or plus parishes is the Horsham Town Special Charge is the lowest that I can see of any of them. So they range from annual bandy equivalents upwards of £150 to Horsham Town Special Charge of £37. So I'm noting that while the increases have been large past year and this year, that the residents of Horsham Town, unparished area, seem to be getting, from my perspective, a good return on that value. Does anyone else have a comment on that, or has anyone else looked at that data? No? But that said, I don't think this committee can make any sort of recommendation for next year's special charge, but this is the first year of the committee, that's what we would do next year, hopefully a bit sooner. Yes, Judy.
Sorry, I don't think we're disagreeing with it for this year, John, anyway, but I do think we would like to know that it's not going to go up astronomically in the future, because we also don't know what value the parishes get from their precepts compared with what value the unparished area gets for the special charge.
Councillor Buffy.
Just for, I believe Colgate's is lower, but that's, there might be one other one as well.
Yes, you noted. That is less than half, but okay. To your second point in the email, you had asked, I think, specifically about some comments about where some detailed comments about what some of the budget lines were going to go to specifically. I don't know if anyone can provide any comments on this. So one was about for the Horsham Park funding, did that include any additional CCTV? Do we know, are we able to answer that question just yet, or is this going to general improvement works?
I don't think it's about CCTV, Sam.
I believe it's worked to cut back the shrubbery, improving the sight lines in the park, as well as obviously works to the lighting. They're replacing the lights with LED lights.
Councillor Frank.
Just say I'd been made aware that there is going to be a mobile CCTV unit placed there at some point, but not specifically for there, but there will be one that we use this. I'm not sure what funding pot that comes from, but I believe that is part of a plan, if that's of any help.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the answer to that is no, but that doesn't mean CCTV isn't being improved. It's just not coming from this budget line. So the second point was then about Blackbridge Community Centre, and particularly about, because there's an increase there from 3,000 last year to 11,000 this year, and maybe what specifically the plans were for that spending. Do you know that?
I do. So it is that The head of property and facilities has informed me that there's going to be minimal spending and no reactive maintenance required, but there are elements such as IT for the booking system, key safe, annual inspections of the emergency lights, fire extinguishers, lift servicing, etc. So they all fall under that maintenance.
Did you have any follow-ups on that point, or can I move down? Do you want? No. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Fletcher.
I was just going to comment on the note that says that the rooms at Blackbridge Community Centre aren't readily available for hire. They are very readily available for hire because we actually have an online booking system, so it's easier to hire this community centre than our other things. Yes, there are now a lot of organisations who are taking advantage of the community hall, so it's no longer the case that you can pick any time you like and there'll be a space, but I just felt that it was perhaps gave the wrong impression.
Yes, go ahead, Diane.
The comment that is, whenever Blueprint have tried to book, we can never get a 7:30 meeting. We can't get it till 8 o'clock because of. I'm just saying, and this is sort of cuts an evening meeting. So either you've got to start very late and finish late. We can't get there at all. That was the problem we were encountering.
I think it's a problem that's nice to have and something that we can probably take offline on this because these bookings will change over time. And I know that up until now, Blueprint meetings have been ad hoc rather than timetabled. So it's not so realistic to expect to get them exactly when you want them on an ad hoc basis.
Can go back to our resources team.
And obviously any additional room income offsets the charge to the special charge area.
Can I move on to the Tambridge Walk lighting next? So that just looking through this, do you want to just summarise the question if you felt it hasn't been answered, Trudy? Thank you.
I think it's already been answered.
Thank you. And I think that goes into the next one as well, which was querying the amount. And it will be next year. We've dealt with Blueprint already in our.
Sorry, just going back to the additional expenditure. The park is for 2 years. Is still Park Barn still for 2 years.
Resources.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
So we've dealt with point 4, which is Blueprint. Point 5 was road safety. I note that it was said that this was considered potentially unnecessary by those writing the email. Do you still feel that way, or can I turn to you to maybe comment other than the fact that I can note that it can be allocated at this point?
I think when it says road safety, we wanted more details on what road safety is going to cover, because if it's SIDS, we've got quite a lot of SIDS around the area. You don't want too many more in the Unparished area. What does road safety mean?
Councillor Fletcher, I think you suggested this one last time. Am I wrong? I'm right. I can comment on this too personally, but
I'm not sure of the detail as to why we've got the 3,000 in there. I think there are still there is still potential for further SIDS. For example, there is no SID in the Den neighbourhood area, and there are definitely opportunities and roads which have at least an equal cause to have one, as there are in Trafalgar and Forest. But I don't specifically know where the figure came from.
Councillor Buffy.
I believe it was intended for this to cover the cost of one SID to be acquired for somewhere in the Unparished area, and I'm only actually aware of one SID currently actually operating in the unparished area. There might be another one I don't know about yet, but there's one in Trafalgar, that's for sure.
Sorry, Forest is about to go up.
The neighbourhood chairs are probably more familiar than some of the councils, but have there been requests for more SIDS?
We have a second one about to go up in Trafalgar.
Judy, did you want to?
Not specifically, I'd be quite happy for it to be removed.
Can I turn to the resource team? If this is sort of allocated but not spent, what happens?
It's probably likely to be spent on something else.
I turn to the group. Do we want to keep it in or do we want to remove it? I mean, I can speak personally that for my general concerns with road safety and traffic is there generally does seem to be a disconnect, I would argue, forgive me, between how a parish can move forward with funding for road safety versus how a neighbourhood council can move forward with funding because of having less reserves, if any, to do initiatives when there's a request from residents. So personally, I would be quite comfortable to have a line about road safety in the budget, in HTC's budget through the special charge, that weren't if it needed, it's there, because it's not like the neighbourhood councils can independently increase the precept to fund consultancy work, to fund a survey. They don't do that easily, or they can't do that easily, whereas parish councils seem to be able to do that much more easily. So frankly, I'd like to see HTC do more with road safety. That's me personally. Councillor Fletcher.
I agree with you, Councillor Olsen, and when the subject of SIDS was discussed at Den Neighbourhood Council, the reason it wasn't taken forward was because Den Neighbourhood Council had very few reserves, which was in contrast to the other neighbourhood councils, and felt that it wasn't in a financial position to go forward with the SID. I think this gives us the opportunity to do that.
Question really. I wondered if there were any potential costs that might be associated with the work towards achieving a lower speed limit, the 20-mile-an-hour work that's going on. I know in Trafalgar, for example. And should we have some money available in case that starts to incur costs?
Councillor Mercer.
Putting my county council hat on for a moment, members will know, and the neighbourhood council will know, that for county councillors, the major bit of casework that comes forward is about roads, road maintenance, speeding, warning signs, etc., etc. It's a disappointment to those who represent the divisions in Horsham, all of us, that more cannot be done by the county in relation to all those issues, and more quickly. Therefore, it's all in all those pieces of casework. It always seems to fall to the community, and I include the parishes and the neighbourhood councils within the community to do what can be done in terms of prevention. And therefore, I would be arguing for some element within the budget to help those who choose to do so do that.
Councillor Buffy.
In my past experience, yes, it's one of the things that we get an awful lot of correspondence and concerns about is speeding. How can we reduce speeding? There's so much that's actually within our power to do, or our ability to do, that we would like to do. Trying to get speed limit changes or whatever through higher local authorities is incredibly difficult. And actually, much of the time, the first hurdle for that is actually having data to support those applications. And you have the kind of what many people would think would be bizarre situation where you can't get a speed limit reduced unless the current speed of it being achieved in that area is only 5 miles an hour over that area. So it's kind of like you don't get the speed reduction until you don't need it. But one of the great things about it is that the speed indicator devices might not be the first thing that people ask for to say, what can you do about this? Because that's not necessarily what people's request would be. But I can say that they're a very effective way of influencing driver behaviour and gathering data in a passive sort of way that can actually build the case for changes. So personally, I think they're a really good idea. Thanks.
Can I just point for clarity, because it's only listed as road safety, we're not necessarily at this point saying that that £3,000 has to be used on a SID. Is that correct? Okay. I don't know what to do, whether to, it sounds like the majority of the councillors would like to keep this on the list, so I'm proposed to keep that on the list for the recommendation then. Moving on then to the youth worker grant, we've sort of dealt with this one I think already. So basically that would mean allocating whatever isn't based on the current projections, which I believe from my calculation was 23,900, to set that aside to help fund the snack wagon. So I think I stumbled on this last time procedurally, forgive me, but unless anyone has any more comments.
Just to say, I did inquire with the officers around the youth worker grant, because I noticed it was the same this year as the previous year, and was concerned whether there was any need for anything inflationary on that, because we want to keep an eye on it. But my understanding is that because it's a fixed term contract over a period, that's what it reflects. So it doesn't need incremental changes year by year. It needs to be revised when the contract changes. So I'm comfortable with that, but I'm keen that we don't sort of slip back into a situation where it didn't change for a long period of time. We need to keep it commensurate with what's required. So, but I'm happy with what's there at the moment.
I'm just going to turn to my officers for a bit of assistance here, because I believe we'll just need a proposal to amend what's been in the report already, and then we can second and vote on that. But just so that everyone's clear, the things that this committee is so far proposing to change, or I believe I will get a proposal for, is to add the amount of £1,020 to the line in blueprint, to reduce the Town Bridge Walk lighting to 12,500, and then to add a line in this for 23,900 for mobile hub, or what would we write? What would be the correct line in that? Mobile hub works for you. Okay, because it's not lumped with youth worker grant, it's a separate line, correct? So, would anyone like to propose then, at this point, unless there's any further comments, that we agree to recommend the special charge to the cabinet member for finance and resources for inclusion in the budget, the following. So basically, as stated in Appendix A, with the amendments, well, that first of all, the total amount remains at 499,796, that being a bandy equivalent of £40.59, and an increase of 9.08% over last year, and that the lines remain the same, barring the ones I've noted, which means blueprint is gone from 0 to 1,020. Town Bridge Walk lighting is reduced to 12,500, and an additional line for mobile hub is added for £23,900. May I have a proposer? Councillor Franklin and a seconder. Ruth Fletcher. All those in favour? I see that is agreed. I believe that's the only thing I needed to do on that line, that agenda item. Is that correct? So then, is there any urgent business? Seeing none, I can call this meeting to a close at 6:05.